I'm the Book Baron. Welcome in. So, it's the July wrap-up. I'm, for once, going to try and film this all in one go because I don't think I'm going to be able to get back into this romper if I attempt to film a second time. Also, regretting everything about this style choice. I do look like Mrs. Potato Head. I did put on the lipstick and the earrings to be like, look, still a girl, but another heads up, your girl has terrible heartburn. I had really spicy nachos right before I filmed this. There's probably going to be burping in this video, depending on if I feel like editing it out or not. And I probably won't, so heads up with that. Great news, folks. I did in fact decide not to be lazy and edit those parts out because, wow, yeah, those burps grossed me out even. But also, just know that some of the edits are going to be weird as a result because some of them happen in the middle of word, okay? Thanks, bye. But let's just get into it, right? Like, let's not drag out this intro too far. Sound great? Excellent. So, first off, I have All the Ugly Things by Stacey Lynn. Now, this was supposed to be the book that we talked about on the live show. Ooh, and I just jumped into that like a feral raccoon. You might be wondering, if you haven't been around, what am I talking about? Why a live show? Yeah, I have a book club called Tainted Love Book Club with my friends Cynthia from Kindle After Dark and Nikki from Nikki and Bookland. So that's what I'm referencing with the live show. So hopefully the rest of this makes so much more sense. I have talked about it a little bit in a vlog about my thoughts and feelings, but I did want to wrap it up here because I kind of just like didn't explain anything on my last wrap up. We had to cancel that live show because all three of us were just like, this month is just a no, and maybe we need a break. So we're going to restart in the fall, but all that to say, I haven't really recapped this very thoroughly. So let's chat about it, shall we? So we have a duet. I don't know why we need to possess this. This is a duet. I'm having a brain bleed. We're not off to a great start. But this is like a friends to lovers sort of billionaire tropiness, but it's like, he's probably a millionaire. Like, we're in the Midwest. The basic overview. The heroine is, I always want to say wrongly convicted. That's not true. She pleads guilty to a crime she didn't commit. She gets sent to prison. She does get early release, but she has no support from her friends and family. They have all abandoned her. They're like, you suck. You're on your own. She's on parole. She has to maintain this job. Not a very good job. Not very many good jobs will take her. Again, on parole. So this older guy, like someone her dad's age, right? Ends up taking interest in her, comes to the diner, wants to chit chat with her, wants to help her out. And she's like, ew, no thank you. The vibes are off. She's like, I don't like it. So he ends up sending in his son and he's like, you convince her. And he's younger and hotter and very much interested in our gal. We'll start off with what I liked. Very short list. The hero was nice. He is assertive and wants to get involved in the heroine's life, but when she's like, sir, can you not? He doesn't, which is great. The rejection of help was at least explained. Do I think it's a good explanation? No. But it's there, so you're not totally screaming like, girl, just take the money. What I disliked. This book had no soul. It was so stale. There's so much room for emotion, right? It's the like rich guy rescuing the poor girl, taking away her problems, but also she wants to be a strong, independent woman. There wasn't anything like fresh about it. Like not even the dialogue was stiff. Like it was like boring. Like the funny moments, I was like, let's not. The twist also, we know as the audience what it is the whole time. So that was annoying. Bottom line, it was boring. It just didn't have the soul that I needed and wanted it to. I wanted it to be emotional. It wasn't. 2 stars. Moving on. A Whisper of Solace by Melinda Mackay. This is a standalone. It's an age gap ice queen sapphic romance. It's Melinda Mackay. We have Neve, and she is a very successful Hollywood exec, and she's kind of known for like turning everything to gold, right? She's the golden goose. So she has gotten herself in a little bit of a situation doing the no pants dance with a rising star in her organization's marketing department. And at the open of the book, she is like, this is going to jeopardize things for me. I need to maintain what I've got for a variety of reasons, but she's like, I need to cut this off. And she does it brutally. And then she spends the rest of the book pining after Audrey. Nope. Aubrey. Oh, I used both. I don't know what her name is. We'll call her A. Pretty Little Liars much? Damn it, I can't believe I fucked that up. Okay, whatever. It's fine. I'm fine. You're fine. We're fine. Anyways, she spends the rest of the book pining after her and kind of keeping tabs on her and also like slightly being involved in her life. Okay, cool. So thoughts on this. This is entirely from Neve's perspective. I love the Ice Queens that Melinda Mackay writes. I was so happy to be in the Ice Queen's perspective because you get to see why she's doing what she's doing, what her thought process is, what her machinations are. The younger heroine I really enjoyed because she felt like she was on equal footing with Neve because she's intelligent. She sees through Neve's bullshit. So when Neve pulls stuff, she's kind of like, nah, I don't buy it. There wasn't this like immense power imbalance because of the age gap and their positions in the company. With the romance, however, because the majority of the book is them separated, Neve is pining after A. It's after their breakup. We're reflecting on past sexy little trysts. You get like little moments of seeing like how they fell in love, but the majority of the book is the pining. So I don't know if it'll have enough romance and enough of like the characters like in a room together for some people. So I just want to warn you about that, but I really enjoyed this book, so I'm giving it 4 stars. Next up, we have Keep You to Myself by Brienne Dene. I believe this might be an interconnected book, but I am unsure. It's a contemporary romance, so we have Synovy, who is our hero. He has had a pretty tough life in and out of the foster care system. He really is focused on stability and finding peace in his life, head down, grinding. But he kind of gets like labeled as standoffish and rude by a lot of people as a result because they'll like want to be friendly and he's like, kindly fuck off. But Torin is a very assertive woman. She's a business owner. She's just like, I could break down these walls and you would be interesting. Thoughts on this? This is pretty unique writing wise because not only is it in third person, it's primarily from the hero's perspective. I haven't read a ton of romances that read that way. It's very untropey. It almost reminded me more of like a hard-hitting romance that you would see in a movie. And I liked the heroine because she wasn't like, ew, you're poor and like move on from him. She was like wanted to see him succeed and was like, could kind of see his drive and was like, ooh, there's something interesting here and I'll help you in these little moments, but you're like capable. I can't wait to see what you become. However, there are some quirks with the writing that prevented me from fully immersing. Those are the words I want. One, there's an over describing of things that are happening. Like we can't just like get in the car and leave somewhere. We have to explain like how we walked up the door, down the drive, opened the driver's side door, moved the seat back, adjusted the stereo. I simply just do not care. That over describing also extends into sometimes you get people's perspective because it's in third person. And I don't know what type of third person, but it's the third person where you can hop into like everybody's head. One time we got a perspective of a 9-year-old doing their puzzle and how excited they were to finish that and the image that would come together. Yeah, I don't give a shit. So I rated this somewhere between like a 3.5 and 4 star. It depends on the day. Like sometimes I feel more one way than the other. Let's move on. We have The Five by Lily White. So this is a standalone and it's like a police investigation, thriller, mystery kind of a feel. Definitely not as romance heavy. I kind of want to keep this as vague as possible. We have Rainey and she's our heroine and she has had a tough life. She doesn't come from money. She's in a really rough neighborhood. In this past timeline that we're kind of getting like stories about from her during the police investigation, she's talking about how she like moved to this neighborhood, fell into this pattern of using her body for drugs and drinking and partying. There's also been a lot of death in her life, but she is caught up in this police investigation in the present timeline because she's the only survivor of a rampage murder. She is kind of telling her story to this psychologist and he's trying to parse through what exactly pertains to the case and what doesn't. I think that I'll leave you with that. It definitely reads a lot more like a thriller. There is a romantic thread, sort of, but it doesn't read very romance heavy. I liked that we were getting the perspective of a psychologist because again, we're kind of seeing like some of the psychological underpinnings of certain things. It was also really fascinating to get another person's perspective on Rainey because you can't tell how reliable she is because one moment you kind of feel bad for her and like she's been taken advantage of and she didn't have any other options. And then other times you're like, are you being manipulative? Like you can't tell. And like sometimes scene to scene, I'll be like, feel different ways about her. I think I'm going to leave it there. I really enjoyed this. I binged this, I think, in like 24 hours. In the vlog, I was like, I'm not going to finish it tonight. I finished it that night and struggled to sleep. Feel like it's like a 4.5 star. I do wish it had more romance, though. Like, I wish that was like a little bit stronger, but I loved that ending. Ooh, and much like Rainey, I have become an unreliable narrator because technically before I read The Five, I read another book for that vlog, Spurred by Vanessa Vale. So I'm just going to wrap that up really quick now because I completely forgot that I read it. So it tells you how good that book is. Basically, we find out that our heroine has inherited money from her father who she never knew. He somehow kept track of her. Gave her money in the will or the house. I don't remember. He has like a ranch out in Montana, Yellowstone, and then the executor of his estate and then like a lawyer or something like that, they come and pick her up from the airport and they're like, we would like to go to Pound Town with this lady, and so they do. And then there's also a suspense line where I think there's someone that is trying to kill her. I don't remember. It was fun and smutty, and that's about it. 3 stars. also from that vlog, which I'll link up here somewhere. Pas de Trois by Bryn Ford. So this is the third book in the Four Family series. There is one more book that's interconnected, but this is the last one with this couple. It's a captive, very, very dark romance. It gets progressively darker. Like the first book, you're like, what is that? The second book, even worse. Basic premise, basic overview, right? We have Anya. She's a ballerina. She's serving the four families as like an entertainment slave. She has different partners that they kind of cycle through and get rid of because she is very, very talented and they can't find someone to really like keep up with her. They end up bringing her a new dance partner, and his name is Ezra. She is tasked with not only breaking him in, but also training him for an upcoming performance. So the problem is Ezra isn't really like breaking down. He's got too much of a spark for life. Thus begins their dangerous connection that ends up developing. I'm doing a terrible job of explaining this because I feel like I've explained this plot in like every video recently. All right, let's just move on. I loved this series. This was a 5-star all the way through. I have one note, maybe a little bit with this one, but the rest of them, none. Wanted to turn the page. How are the hero and heroine gonna end up together? My heart rate's up. I'm fully engaged. I'm fully immersed in this world. I'm scheming. I'm trying to figure out how they're gonna like make their way out of these situations. I loved that the villainous characters didn't have any sort of like redemption arc. They were villainous, right? Like they were complex, but like they were still that. Like I loved that we stuck with that. Ezra, love him. Simp boy. He is a golden retriever. He loves Anya. He loved Anya a little too hard sometimes. There's just like sometimes in his perspective, he's like, oh, she's so strong. And then we'd get her perspective and she's like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And so you're kind of like, is this just like he's just got a completely different read on her and like her internal status is just different. So sometimes that got a little annoying and repetitive. I still love him. I love that man so much. Anyway, 5 stars. I love this series. I adore this series. I will read the 4th book, which is like The King of Something. I can't even remember what it's called now, but it's an interconnected book. So I just want to take like a short break because otherwise I will induce a heart attack. This series is a form of cardio. Okay, I'm gonna be super brief with this next one because I DNF'd it very quickly, but I want to mention it because it was on my TBR. So I have Trapped by Mila Olson. So this is part of a series. It's a captor-captive dark romance. Basic premise, the heroine gets kidnapped on a camping trip with her brothers. I don't know why I'm looking down here. She ends up running into a stranger. It turns out this stranger has orchestrated this whole thing, kidnaps her. I DNF'd this very quickly. So I got this as part of Stuff Your Kindle Day. I love captor-captive romances. I love dark romance. I was like, this sounds like it's totally up my alley. So I don't know if it's the translation because I think I mentioned in my TBR, this was translated from German, I believe. It just felt a little cartoonish, a little campy, a little bit contrived, not very genuine. Kind of that like community theater, like a little bit over the top feel to it. And the heroine was like a little bit too immature as a result. So she's in high school and she dyed the mashed potatoes blue as like a prank. Bottom line, the writing felt off. So again, I don't know if that's the book itself or if it's the translation. If you read German, you should let me know and read the original one. I DNF'd it, and I don't think I'm gonna pick that back up. Next up, I read Magdalene Knox, and this is by Melina Mackay. This is interconnected with the headmistress. This one is just from the Ice Queen's perspective. Age gap, forbidden, sapphic. Oh, it's like she's got a formula. We love Melina Mackay for it. I don't know how much I want to explain the plot. No, I will. So basically, Melina's ready to get her revenge. What for? Great question. You'll find out in the book. She has a hotsy-totsy little night with our other heroine, Sam. And then turns out Magdalene gets a job at a prestigious girls' school that she used to go to. And she is like, now's my chance for revenge, until she finds out that Sam works there. And she kind of has to pick between revenge and this woman. What does she do? That was terrible. That was a terrible explanation. Thoughts on this? This was fun because it's like I got to reread a book that I really love, but I got like a little bit more information, a little bit better perspective on Magdalene, or insight into her aloofness and how she's built this persona, what all was really going on in her life to kind of like lead to this confrontation that they end up having at the boarding school where she fires everybody. Like, why did she come in just like guns blazing like that? So you get a little bit more insight. I do wish it offered just like a little bit more different elements plotting wise because there's a mystery element. Someone is trying to hurt people at the school. In The Headmistress, it's a mystery, but we've already read that, right? So now we're on to Magdalene Knox. We already know how that plays out. I just wish there was like a little bit more, like to offer a little bit something different. But like, can I complain? Not really. 4.5 stars. Next up, I read Luna Mare, and this is by Pepper Winters. So this is the first in a duet. This book is so chunky, by the way. It's an age gap forbidden, coming of age, new adult. I wrote age grape. Good job, age grape. So we have Aslan, and he is 16 years old. He is escaping his home country with his family. This is when tragedy strikes. They are on a very small boat in the middle of the ocean, and a storm hits, capsizes the boats. Aslan is then rescued by Nerita, who is with her marine biologist parents. She's very free-spirited. She's like 12 when this happens. But anyways, they get Aslan some help. They realize his situation. He's not in the country legally, and they offer him a little bit of help, especially because like they don't know what happened to his family. Their only request is just like, leave our daughter alone, which she's like 12. So he's like, that's fine. This becomes harder and harder. They've always kind of had like a little something, like a little bit of a connection. And as they get older, it's getting harder and harder to resist. This is a really big problem because for Aslan, this could cost him literally everything. So I am going to preface my review with the fact that one, I did not realize how long this book was when I picked it up. I am fighting I've been fighting a slump. I think we need to be honest. I'm finding some winners and like enjoying some books, but I'm having a harder time finding books that I like. This book, I think, got the brunt of my slumpiness, but all that to say, I think this is a really great story in general. I like the writing. I like the angst. I like the tension. There's stakes for them not to be together. I like all of the being out on the water. Aslan is he's very driven and he knows what he needs to do. And he just wants so badly to just be able to do that thing. And I think because this is such a long book, it's like 600 odd pages, and it takes place over like 6 years, you kind of get lulled into this false sense of calm because we have this like present timeline where we're with Nerita and she's like telling her story to interviewers and she keeps kind of like alluding to that dark things are going to happen. And oh my goodness, we went from like, we're hanging out on blue waters, no, we can't be together, oh, the teenage angst of it all, to just like, woo, like into the dark, like within a chapter. Okay, I feel like that cutesy little hand motion didn't quite capture like how quick this descent was. So Jess from Honest Fiction and I were reading this at the exact same time, at somehow the exact same pace. A mystery that I still have yet to uncover, but nonetheless, it was nice because we were messaging each other and we're like, oh my gosh, it's so crazy. Pepper Winters has really changed her stripes. This really isn't that dark. And then we hit the chapter. Oh my God, the DMs that were flying. It was intense. Okay, hopefully that gives you a better picture about the sharp drop that this book boots you off of. Within, however, I did have some cons. I think this was too long. I think it was overwritten. Conversations that happened probably could have been truncated into about half of what it was. We lingered too long on certain things. I really wish we had cut down a lot of the timeline around the 12-year-old mark because we started way too young for my taste. And there was a weird comment made when she turned 14. And as an old ass woman, I'm not that old, I'm very aware of the maturity difference between like a 14-year-old and an 18-year-old. And it gave a little like, I don't like it. But there was just like a couple lines. Two things I want to flag for all of y'all if you want to read this. One, the hero and heroine do have other love interests. I'm having a stroke. Have other love interests and partners because they are trying to fight their attraction. They do make attempts to stay away. And sometimes that involves other people. So if you don't like that, don't read this. Also, as I said, the heroine starts out very young. There were some moments where I was like, ooh, that might also bother some people. The last thing, the heroine does come across really naive and sheltered because she's young and she has not been through all the same things that Aslan has. And so she asks him to make sacrifices without fully understanding what she's asking for, which does get annoying. I think if I had read this another time, it would be a 4-star. I think this is like a 3.5 star though. So take that rating with a grain of salt, but I do feel how I feel. Moving along, Shipwreck Sadie. And this is by Marianne Ross. So I end up buddy reading this with Lynn from Lynn's Romance Library. It is like a historical romance. It's kind of got like a mail order bride. It takes place in Australia. I just realized I read 2 books in Australia back to back. That's so weird. Anyway, so this is about Sadie and she does some very grueling work. And we start off in London or the UK or something. And she works in a cotton mill and it is terrible work. So she kind of on a whim dares her friend to sign up to be a mail order bride to Australia because they're looking for women to go and like settle. Her friend's like, I'll do it if you do it. And she's like, sick, let's go. There's some weird parallels to Lunamari. Anyway, on the way, the ship encounters trouble and it wrecks and she almost dies. How did I not put this together? She ends up being saved by a pirate and safely delivered to the guy that ordered her. Connick, and I don't know that I'm saying that right. And Connick is an entrepreneur, so he's looking for a wife because he needs like some credibility because he also smuggles whiskey and shipwreck hunts, which like shipwrecks belong to the crown. He's doing some shifty things, right? He's got some shady business. So he gets Sadie, and Sadie ends up getting cold feet, and she just decides on a whim that she does not want a man. And she wants to be free to make her own decisions, and that causes an uproar in the town. Thoughts on this? So, I would not recommend this. Okay, it's not very well written. I'm just gonna be 100% honest with you. It's like too heavy-handed. It's a little too like modern with some of its ideas. It lacks like a lot of continuity. There's just so much that's like picked up, abandoned, picked up, abandoned, picked up, addressed very quickly, and then we move on. So there's like no flow. The relationship is hot and cold in a hot second. Heroine is very stubborn, very inconsistent herself, very flighty, somehow manages to charm everyone. And Lynn said it reminded her of I Love Lucy a little bit. She seems to be able to charm people, but she's like, seems a little bit all over the place. So when I read it with that eye, way more interesting, way more fun. But, and I had a fun time reading this with Lynn and just like talking about it back and forth. But like, yeah, would I actually recommend this? Like, absolutely the fuck not. Next up, we have The Paradise Problem, and this is by Christina Lauren. And this is traditionally published. This is a standalone marriage of convenience, tropical vacation rom-com. Basically, the hero and heroine get married in college in order to get subsidized like married people family housing. And then once they graduate, they end up amicably parting ways with a little extra paperwork. 3 years later, Anna is a starving artist. He is a professor at Stanford. Stanford. That's not how you say that. He's a professor at Stanford, and he's the heir to like a food conglomerate. Do I know what that is? Absolutely not. But they live like completely separate lives. They're not in the same town. He ends up like kind of turning up, and he's like, Anna, did you not read the paperwork? We're not fully divorced. We have to wait a couple years because this marriage also helps me to get an inheritance. We've still got like a little bit of time left, and my family wants to know about you, so you need to come to a family wedding in Indonesia. It's like this tiny private island. He needs to like sell this marriage to his family while he's there. Okay, thoughts. It was fun, but it was pretty easy to pick up and put down. The banter is good, not the best. Like when we're talking about like Abby Jimenez and Emily Henry, top tier. This is fine. It's like the heroine's quirky type of rom-com. I did get a little bit annoyed because the heroine kept talking about how she was kind of doing this for the money. Oh yeah, the hero like also offers her money to do this thing. And she's, like I said, she's a starving artist. He's got like billionaire money. So he's just like, here's some money in order to like come and do this family wedding with me. The heroine keeps talking about how she's doing it for her dad. They have one conversation. And I was like, you keep talking about how close you are to him. I know that he needs money for treatment, but she never talks to him, like ever. And I was like, I just don't think you're as close to your dad as you think you are. It does have some spice, unlike some other Christina Laurens. But like I said, nice, easy read. It was like a fun summer read. It was perfect for what it was. Next up, I got a wild hair for historicals, and I read What a Duke. That is not the title. I have written What a Duke Dark Is. Here's the cover. Anyways, it's by Anna Campbell. This is the third book in a series. I went in straight for the third book, didn't care about the others. It's a historical romance with sort of a forced marriage or marriage of convenience, I guess, and childhood friends to lovers. So we have the Duke of Sedgemoor. He proposes to, it's his childhood best friend's sister. She rejects him. She's like, we are not well suited. You want like a proper lady. I am not a proper lady. So like, go find someone else, please. She goes off on her own, explores the continent, has a rowdy good time. Years later, the Duke is tasked by her brother on his deathbed to bring her back to London. I can't exactly remember why, but he's dying, so you do what the dying man asks. And they end up having to like pretend to be married, and then they end up in a situation where their reputations are threatened, and so then they have to kind of like make it work, Tim Gunn style. Thoughts on this one? I liked the premise. I liked the romance, but there was a massive problem with this book, and that was there was a heavy secondary romance. It was so jarring. I had almost no context. Chapter, boom, we are somewhere else. We're in another town. We are with other people. And I was just like, where, who, what? Not well integrated, not well introduced. And also that secondary romance just like took over. Other than that, what else did I think? I felt like the miscommunication, lack of communication going on with the main couple, the main romance, was drawn out for too long. So 3 stars. At this juncture, this is where my reading started getting wonky. This slump made me do it. I did go on like a binge of historical romances, and I'm using the word binge lightly because I haven't posted that vlog yet. It's not even done yet. I'll probably read more than these books for that. I just didn't want to like fully review them because it felt weird to like spoil my own vlog. But here's the books that you can expect at a bare minimum. First, we have Again the Magic by Lisa Kleypas, and this is like a childhood friends to lovers, separated for a while, class difference kind of book. We have The Highwayman by Kerrigan Byrne, and this is a hero who's got like a notorious criminal past, present. He's a criminal, kidnaps our heroine, and there's like a marriage of convenience. Then we have Scandalous Desires, and this is by Elizabeth Hoyt, and this is a river pirate that drops his baby at the heroine's door, and then later, after hearing his baby is in trouble, ends up stealing the baby back, and also kind of the heroine. So you can expect those in a coming vlog. Again, there will probably be others. I'm trying to explore my taste in historicals. The whole time I've had this channel, I'm like, I should figure that out, and I just haven't. Now I am. While I was reading historicals, I was also reading like dystopians and sci-fis and prison planets. So buckle up, folks. I read Hold by Claire Kent. This is the first in an interconnected series of novellas. There's like 4, and it's like a sci-fi dystopian prison planet type of books. In this world, they punish all crimes the same. And so like the minorest infractions, you get the same punishment if you like murder somebody, right? It's all life sentence on this prison planet. Rihanna falls victim to this system. She is, I can't remember, she's like an archaeologist. Anyways, she's digging for stuff. She turns out didn't have the right permits. So they're like, yoink, prison planet with you, ma'am. In this prison planet, there's like blocks of cells. It's like a proper prison. As the guard is bringing her to her like cell block, he's like, hey, like it's rough in there. Work with what you got. Find the biggest and toughest who can protect you and use your body in exchange. So she has her eye on a big scary loner that's like off in the corner. This was very fast-paced, quickly sets up the world. It doesn't set it up like too much. It's like just enough so that you're kind of like, here is context and let's get into things. Loved it. The spice does start early and is often. However, it is used as a way to kind of show the progression of the relationship. You kind of see how like intimacy and passion like build throughout. It keeps the angst and tension alive and well, which is great. We're trying to survive, right? So she's trying to figure out the balance of like, how do I please him, but also like still be a human person? And what's actually our arrangement? We know the basics, but like they're still trying to figure and feel each other out with stuff. The ending got a little corny for me. It was just like such a departure from the rest of the book, but it wasn't that bad. Like it was fine. But this altered my brain chemistry. I was like, what is this crack? I love this. And I went down a rabbit hole of dystopians and prison planets. 4.5 stars for Hold by Claire Kent. And I read from a different series, Last Light by Claire Kent. This is dystopians. Ooh, see, yeah, technically this isn't a dystopian. Technically, this is post-apocalyptic. And I could have let it slide because there's not a huge difference between the two. But honestly, it was going to bother me if I did address it, so I did. Also, upon further review, aka I attempted to find the second book in this series, this is a standalone. There is a series of novellas that's, I guess, interconnected or at least happening in the same world, but this is a standalone book, and I'm devastated. Okay, bye. Survival style romance. So basically in this world, 4 years ago, an asteroid hit. Civilization very quickly kind of broke down and people like walled off their communities and tried to protect them. But the community that our heroine and hero are from kind of ran out of supplies and they ended up going to a military fort. However, the heroine had a sick relative that couldn't make the journey, so she ended up staying behind. And then once they passed, then she was like, okay, now I'm gonna make the journey to that fort and like link up with everyone else from my town. She ends up running into this guy that used to fix her car named Travis. She doesn't like him or hate him. She like literally just doesn't know him that well. This is a dog-eat-dog world. And so she was just like, back off, my man, I need to get places, and zooms off. He is also heading to the same place, so he comes upon her very rapidly and ends up helping her out. And then she's finally like, okay, you know what? He's actually probably safer than being by myself. So I changed my mind. I'm gonna go with him. And it's like they're traveling to the fort and falling in love and also trying to survive. This one really keeps you on edge because they're like constantly looking for supplies, trying to figure out like what their next move is. There's just a lot plot that changes constantly with their circumstances, so it does keep you pretty engaged. Sometimes there was like little lulls where I was like, ooh, just like not a little bit, not enough is happening. Does that make any sense? A little bit of not enough is happening. Sure. Yeah, but it didn't feel like too repetitive. Lots of great caretaking moments. Ooh, delightful. The tension between the main characters, by even 30% in, I was like, can you two please rip each other's clothes off? Please and thank you. But the spice also has this like, a wholesome feel. Because it was like raw and like clumsy, and they're really communicative. So they're just like a lot more honest with each other. Also, the hero, Consent King. We adore and love him so much for that. That was such a priority. And I really, it was like hard because they have to make a lot of hard sacrifices. They're not used to being able to like have things they want. It kind of feeds into the relationship because they're like, ooh, I like this, but also, am I allowed to have this? I don't think I am. There's never like 100% security in anything. It was like weirdly sweet and also like tension filled. Anyway, 4 stars. I loved it. Next, I read The Garden. Okay, pause. I can't tell if present me is hard of hearing or past me is stupid. The title of the book is Guardian, not Garden. I feel like that's a very important point of clarification. By Emmy Chandler, and this cover is going to be a jump scare. So I'm warning you now. Be prepared in 3, 2, 1. Ooh, yeah, it's bad. The hero looks like a greaser. That is not the vibe of this book at all. It also seems to be mixed with some sort of bad PowerPoint presentation about Mars. Anyways, this is the first in a series. Prison Planet, once again, it's sci-fi dystopian. Once again, we have survivals. On the surface, this has a very similar premise to Hold, but there's key differences, so I'm gonna walk you through it. So we have Audra. She's newly convicted. She gets dropped on a prison planet called Rodon. Ooh, sometimes you say a word for the first time out loud, and I don't think that's correct. Whatever. So anyways, this is a prison planet that's a little bit more like open pen. So there's different like zones, and they like had settlement set up, but like all of the rooms have kind of been ruined over time. And they do like drops for like food and stuff like that, just kind of like randomly in the zone. And then you just have to like, like beat that guy and like get your stuff. So she ends up in zone 4, and zone 4 is unique in that there are 2 settlements. Settlement A is all men and settlement B is all women. So initially, as a woman, she gets dropped at settlement B. I guess non-binary people and intersex people just like don't exist in this world. So the women settlement have an agreement with the men's settlement that whenever they get a new batch of women, they will send like 6 of them over, and they are just like the playthings for the guys over there. And in exchange, the men will not raid the women's settlement. Audra is one of the 6 that are selected to be the like sacrifice. She just have a little bit of control, a little bit of say here, in that she gets to pick the prisoner that she is paired with until a new crop of women comes in. In exchange for doing the hanky-panky with this prisoner, you get food, shelter, safety. Hopefully you can be stolen, capture the flag style, and end up with someone else. And if they're not a good provider, you're not eating. So you get it. It's important. Who you pick matters. So Audra has to pick a guy, and she picks the hero, who's also sort of a loner. So I am losing steam so rapidly, but we are gonna power through. Okay, so the prison planet setting, I really enjoyed this. Obviously I keep going back to this type of book for a reason. I think because it blends dystopian and like a sci-fi setting. It's like survival, which is like all stuff I've talked about, how I like that. And it's just like in a blender and I get it all. Also, it has kind of an element of like somewhere between like captor-captive and captive-captive. This is dual POV. However, I did like that the hero's perspective wasn't like overly revealing of his feelings. It was like enough to give you like some context about like what he's trying to do and how he's providing for Audra and a little bit of what he's thinking, but it's not like I'm in love with her, I'm obsessed with her. You're like, sir, it's been 4 minutes, please calm down. Although the circumstances of their coupling are a little bit dubious, right? We've got some schmexy time being in exchange for shelter, food, and safety. The hero does strive for consent as much as possible. There's some miscommunication. There are some times where it's like a little bit like, I'm not sure, but he strives for it. So we love that. Heroine, very strategic, quick thinker. she's very like interested in ethics and social norms. And so she's always kind of thinking through like how this prison planet system is impacting people and how they're going to react to different things and what will upend the system and like the dangers of that. So that was fun. I loved that little bit of insight. It have a couple of hangups. One was that it felt like there was supposed to be this like angst and tension of like the heroine not really understanding that the hero cared about her. And it just bordered on her being dense. And she's such a smart lady. So it was just kind of like, it was noticeable where we're just like, oh, you're just like, why are you just not getting this? The ending also wasn't like 100% satisfying. This is an interconnected series. So I don't know if we're going to get like more glimpses of the couple. Where things left off, it didn't feel stable or like they were headed towards an HEA. There was still like a lot of question marks for me where I was like, I wish we got this like just hammered out a little bit more. But I loved this book. I had so much fun reading it, even though this cover is awful. 4.5 stars. Loved this book. Next, I read The Lasarin by Diane Duvall. And this is a first in a series. It's a sci-fi alien romance. It's very action-packed and it's got like a paranormal spin to it. This is a movement that I have done and is now existing online. So we have, oh no. Oh, see, this is why I hate reading sci-fi and fantasy books, because now I have to say the names out loud and I don't know how to say them. Talon? He's our hero. His sister disappeared. He's traced it to Earth. And he's an alien, obviously, because he's in space. Well, not obviously. I guess in some sci-fi books, humans are in space. We're overcomplicating this. Okay, she went on a diplomatic mission because they are having some problems. And she was like, I think we could link up with the humans and like make fetch happen. Instead, his sister ends up prisoner. So he ends up going after her. He ends up captured. He's also a prisoner now. That's that setup for the hero. The heroine, on the other hand, her name is Lisa. She's kind of scraping by. Her family has passed. She's trying to pay for college. And one of the ways that she's gotten a little creative with things is that she is a participant in studies. She found this kind of like weird one that's also high paying. It's like backed by the government, but they're looking for psychics. And so she ends up getting in, not really clocking that the vibes are off. And then she ends up captured and experimented on. I don't want to say too much, but basically her and Talon, oh damn, I don't like how I said that, end up in the same facility and they need to escape together. So thoughts on this. This was action-packed. It was heavy on the sci-fi, but it also was like very wholesome, very sweet. The love, it felt a little insta. It felt a little bit too strong too quickly. There's at least an explanation. I still would have liked more build up. I felt like this was just like a touch too long. It got a touch rambly. Like the ending, it kind of felt like the author didn't know how to wrap it up. And so it felt like it just kind of like kept going. And I was like, ooh, this just feels like it's getting away from us. Also, this is mildly spoilery. So if you don't want to know anything else other than what I've said about the plot, skip ahead like 30 seconds. But for the rest of you that feel like maybe you want like a little heads up on the content, heavy pregnancy emphasis and reproduction plays a big role. So just like, I think you can figure out what trope we're talking about here. It's an alien romance, right? Like this ends up playing a factor. Like humans usually end up fixing a reproduction problem, right? Okay, cool. So I like this book. I don't love it. I don't know. I'm between like a 3 and a 3.5. It depends on the day. Okay, moving on. Fall by Claire Kent. So remember I was talking about Hold and I was like, it's the first in a series. Yeah, so then I read the third book, skipped the second book. I saw that, not interested. So this is sci-fi, more survivalist, just marriage of convenience. I'll explain. So it's about Lena and she is a smuggler. She finally ends up getting caught and instead of going to a prison planet like our other heroine, she gets what they call planet dumped because it's like fewer resources. They basically pick a planet like someone at random and then they just like leave you there to your own devices. They don't provide you with any food. They're not housing you, nothing. Like they just, you're done. You gotta figure it out yourself. So she ends up on a planet that's like in the Stone Ages and she ends up linking up with this group of like cavemen and she has to become one of their mates in order to kind of like thrive in this environment. It's like a similar concept to the other one, but like our hero's a caveman. Look, I don't know. I like what I like, okay? honestly, this was such a fun concept. I think because they had to find other means of communication because their communication was like just completely different. Like it's a different language and it's not a well-developed language. There's also like a clashing of cultures because they're just so much more survivalist and she's from a very well-off where they're used to kind of like having more like creature comforts, like pets and stuff like that. There's just like times where her behavior comes across really strange to them, which is entertaining. But the hero, I kind of love it because at first he's kind of like, like we'll see if she survives. But then like once he takes an interest in her, he's on her team. He's on her side. I just love that he was just kind of like, yeah, she's weird, but she's mine. I also liked because we don't have a lot of communication, a lot of the love, the interest has to be shown through different actions. There is some limited communication. And so it's kind of a double-edged sword. It kind of prevents you from fully knowing and understanding the hero because we don't get his perspective. We don't get a lot of communication with him. So it just kind of makes it kind of tricky. Also, Spice is a little wham bam thinky man, like a little bit quick, which like if you're doing it doggy style in a cave, I can't imagine that you're wanting that to really go on for too long. So too many details. All right. Rating of 4 stars. All right, then I tried to read the 4th book called Rise, and that's because it follows a character from Fall, and I'll keep it brief. Basically, it's back on Earth, and there's like, it's like a pleasure palace, basically, where these women, in exchange for their like family being set up for life, they are just used as like F toys for the elites. Yeah, I just didn't love it. I just didn't love the premise. I just had a hard time connecting with the heroine because she kind of has to hide her feelings because she just has to be like willing and excited. I just didn't feel like I was like really getting to know her because she's always like masking her feelings. Moving on, I DNF'd it. I might come back to it, but probably not. Okay, then I read Trapped by Allison Ames, and I just realized I read 2 different books named Trap. I also DNF'd this one. But anyway, Prison Planet concept again. So the heroine in this one is like this hardworking scientist. She's not from like the elite class and she has to provide for her siblings. So she is on this like transport to go study some like plant life basically on this prison planet. They crash land. So she is left without a soldier protective detail, just like on the surface of this planet. She doesn't know when she's going to get rescued. She's hearing shrieking in the distance. She kind of makes a split decision to protect herself and some colleagues that survived the crash that are like, they're not doing well. She's just like, hey, big boy over there. I know you look big and stinky and scary, and I am terrified of what crime you've committed. But if you help me drag these bodies that are very much injured but still alive into this cave, I will do whatever you want. Interesting concept. Clearly, I have liked that sort of setup before. It's a little bit different. I just found some weird quirks with the writing I just didn't really like. There was multiple times where I would read a sentence and I just didn't understand what it was saying. So I had to reread like a lot where I was like not quite gleaning the information as quickly as I would have liked. I don't know if it was because I was tired or if the writing really was just like kind of clunky for me. Something wasn't working. And the irony of what I'm about to say. Also, the writing had a big like telling, not showing problem. So I just felt like I was getting spoon-fed stuff. And I'm like, just show me what's going on. I don't need you to tell me that she was so touched by her colleague's attempt to help her. Just like, give me the tears in the eyes. Give me a misty-eyed moment. Show through actions. There's also really odd descriptions. Nipples crinkle in the cold. What in the paper mache are you doing with your nipples, Miss Ma'am? Hated that. The hero's perspective, got it one way too early. I wish we had not had that. Have a little bit of mystery. What's going on? We don't understand the prison planet. He explained a few things too early. I would have liked them to have been hidden a little bit. Also, he immediately sees her and was like, no pants dance with that one for sure. And was really into her. She's so strong. I like her. By 20% in, the heroine's catching feelings. I was like, what in the ever-loving fuck is happening? Okay, I feel the need to further state my case to this because it wasn't so much that it was the 20% mark, okay? It was the fact that they had not had a single full conversation, but the hero had fucked her so good that she was like, I feel like he cares. Ma'am, just because it's good for the whole does not mean it's good for the soul. You know what I'm saying? No, that is unearned feelings. Absolutely the fuck not. Okay, so that's why it bothered me. You know? Okay, good. Glad that we could clarify that. Okay, bye. I felt like I was hitting hang up, and I was just kind of like, I could push through because I do like this premise clearly, but also I just don't want to. And there's so many Prison Planet books that I'd rather move on to something else. So I DNF'd it. I might come back to it. Probably not though. I think the writing really did bug me. Yeah, I've actually finished more books than this, but I just genuinely do not feel like recapping them. So I'll save them for next month. With all that, those are the books that I read for July. Let me know what was your favorite book this month? What have you been kind of feeling? Because obviously I just like deep dove into historicals and Prison Planet dystopian books out of nowhere. I don't know where that came from, but here we are. I'm happy to be here. I'm having a great time. Yeah, so let me know what you're reading. Let me know what you're excited to pick up for next month, because I'm kind of feeling a little bit slumpy and I'm ready to like mix things up. Let me know if you have any good books that kind of help pull you out of a slump, because I would love to know any of that. All right, I've been filming for over an hour. My brain cells gone, fried, done. They don't want to be here anymore. So thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to like this video if you ended up liking it. I mean, if you're here, at least liked it a little bit. Anyway, I hope I see you on my next video. Bye.